Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the May 21st, 2025 Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. First thing on our agenda tonight is public comments, and when I checked, there had been no requests for public comments, and we do not have any minutes to approve at this time. So we're going to jump right off into our first item on our agenda by departments, and that's other social, cultural, and recreation, which starts on page 36.
Committee members, that the breakdown of that big number is going to be under the last page under tab 1 is going to be a breakdown of that large number for the nonprofit organizations.
And we'll be looking at our donations that we're giving to the nonprofits tonight. And what I'm going to ask the nonprofits is our call. If you agree with the mayor's recommendation, I would prefer, just for expediency, if you agree, you can stand up and let me know that you agree, and we'll go ahead. However, if you don't, or you specifically want to make a request, then you'll be welcome to come up and speak. The first one on our list is child advocacy, and that was for $42,000. Do I have a representative here from them? And usually when I don't have, they are okay with the mayor's request, and that's why they're not here. So I'm going to assume that's the case here. They had $42,000 last year. They requested $42,000, and the mayor's recommendation is $42,000. Do I have any questions on the child advocacy request?
Mr. Chairman, are we going to ask about the 42, and then there's $1 million also? Are we going to combine those?
They'll be separate.
Separate?
They'll be separate. 42 is what they have had, basically had in the past. So anyway, the other one is a capital project, so I'm looking at those separate. Any other questions? Anybody on the committee on their request? Hearing no questions or no suggestions to change that, we're going to add the child advocacy for $42,000 to our approved column, or our column for publication. Now, next is the capital child advocacy capital campaign, which the request was for $1 million. Is Ms. Demos here? Anyway, she had requested, some of the folks from Child Advocacy had called me and requested a chance to speak, and I told them, of course, they would. If they're not here at this time, let's hold off on that one until we get to the end, and we'll come back to that. Next is domestic violence program. Is there anyone here from domestic violence? They requested $67,000. I'm sorry, I'm looking at that backwards. They requested 70, and that is the amount that the mayor has approved in his budget. And not seeing anybody from that program, I'm assuming they also agree with the mayor's recommendation. Any comments from the committee? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and add the domestic violence program for $70,000 to our publication list. Next is the family center. Their request was for $30,000, and the mayor's recommendation was for $30,000. Anyone from the family center here that would like to speak? Again, I assume that they are okay with the mayor's request, or they'd be here otherwise. Anyone from the committee have a comment or a suggestion? Any changes? Hearing none, we'll also add that to our publication list. The Laverne Senior Center has not requested, and they have not have anything down from the mayor. Mid-Cumberland Human Resource Agency requested $37,563, which is also the mayor's recommendation for dues. And I want to go ahead and pick up the Meals on Wheels for $37,800 was the request, and also the mayor's agreed with that. There was no request on transportation. Under homemakers, there was $5,000 requested, and also the mayor's has put in his budget the $5,000, and that's the totals for Mid-Cumberland Human Resource Agency. Do I hear any comments from the committee on this request? Is there anybody here from Mid-Cumberland that would like to speak? Okay. Hearing nothing from our committee, we're going to add Mid-Cumberland Human Resource Agencies, the mayor's request, to our publication list. Next is Portico, Inc., and the mayor's request is for $5,000. Mayor, you want to make a comment on that? I say that didn't have a request. Is that just an oversight on there?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat the question?
Portico, Inc.,
Yes, sir.
we had gave them $5,000 last year. I don't see a request this year, but we do have $5,000 in their
Yes,
budget.
sir. And so they made a request. They didn't get the request into the finance department on time. I spoke to Michael. We've got a couple like this, and so because we have assisted them previously, and it was an administrative error with Portico, exercising a little grace here. I talked to Michael. He said, and there are a couple like this, the disbursement can't be made until they formalize the documentation necessary. And so I know that documentation is in my office, but regardless, if it's approved and the finance doesn't have the documentation, no disbursement will be made. Am I saying that right, Michael?
Just to clarify, we put a deadline in place for all these nonprofits. That deadline is more so that we can get the packet made. There's no state deadline. It's really our office set a deadline to make sure it makes it into your packet. Every year we have a few places that turn in late or an incomplete packet. So some of these are either turned in late or an incomplete packet at the time we made the books. And so it is well within pretty normal process if the mayor would like to include those in his recommendation. As he said, there are certain documents that are required. So even if they turned in on time and the mayor approved, if they don't turn in the required documents, we're not cutting the money anyways. Most of the ones, I think the very next one is also either late or had an incomplete packet, and that happens from time to time.
Okay, you've heard the mayor's request, $5,000 for Portico. Do I hear any discussion from the committee? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and add Portico, $5,000, same as last year at the mayor's request. Next, as Michael mentioned, same scenario, Read to Succeed. We gave them $7,000 last year. The mayor's recommended $7,000 this year. Do I hear any changes or requests from the committee on the Read to Succeed for $7,000? Okay, we're going to add that one also to our list of things to go to publication. Relax and Ride. Excuse me, was there anybody here from Read to Succeed or Portico that wanted to speak? I didn't mean to shortchange anybody. Next is Relax and Ride. The request was $58,913. The mayor's suggested budget is $49,220, which is the same as last year. Anyone here from Relax and Ride that would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor, you're recognized.
Can I address the committee for just a second? So on a lot of these, when they didn't come, when there was a increase that was requested, I've tried to make it known with some degree of success that if you want an increase, I would appreciate a visit for you to explain the justification and the increase. and we didn't get that, even though they submitted the application. So I felt my obligation was what the county did the previous year without a formal request for a justification for why the increase. So if the committee's saying, well, Mayor, why didn't you grant the increase? It's because they didn't come to my office and make that justification. And so that was the logic. So the committee's free to take exception to that logic and change the number, but I just wanted the committee to know that was my rationale for why I didn't respond to their increase, if that makes any sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. So you've heard the request. The mayor's request is $49,220, same as last year. Do I hear any suggested changes or comments? Hearing none, we're going to add Relax and Ride to our publication list. Rutherford County Primary Care and Hope Clinic. Is anyone here wish to speak? Okay, the request was for $55,125, and that is the mayor's recommendation. Any comments from the committee? Hearing none, we're going to add the Rutherford County Primary Care and Hope Clinic, $55,125, same as last year. Next is the St. Clair Street Senior Center. They requested $165,000, and the mayor's recommendation is for that amount. Anyone here from St. Clair? Anyone from the committee have a question about this donation or any suggested changes? Hearing none, we're going to add the St. Clair Center Senior Center, St. Clair Street Senior Center to our publication list. Now, the Senior Activity Center of Smyrna had a request of $72,000, and the mayor's request on the budget is for $72,000. Any questions from the committee on the Senior Activity Center of Smyrna? Hearing no suggested changes, we're going to go ahead and move to the next one and add that to our approved column. Next is Special Kids. We gave them $7,000 last year. The mayor's recommendation is for $7,000. Anyone here from Special Kids would like to make a presentation? Hearing none, we'll go ahead to the next one. We'll be adding the $7,000 for Special Kids to our publication list. Next is Kamari House. They've requested $10,000. The mayor's suggestion is for $2,500. Anyone here from Kamari House that would like to speak? Hearing none. Anyone from the committee have any questions or suggestions? On the Kamari House, the mayor's recommendation is for $2,500, and that's what we're going to add to our column for publication. The next is Salvation Army. They requested $20,000. They have not been given money in the past, and the mayor did not make a recommendation to fund the Salvation Army's request of $20,000. Any comments from the committee? Vice Chairman, you're recognized.
If I could, I would like to go back to the Kamari House. Is this the first year that we've made a donation to them?
You're recognized.
So if I assumed that it was because there was not a previous donation. The unwritten policies kind of been when you ask for the first time, we cap it at $2,500. That was been the information that I've been working on since I became mayor. So if there is if they have asked previously from this body and we've granted it, and there's some difference, then I'm unaware of that, Trey, and that's Commissioner, that we something can address tonight. But that was the reason when they asked for 10, I gave 25, because we're trying to set a process that is equal to everybody the first year they apply, and I didn't have any recollection that we'd done anything before.
That's what I was figuring, but I'm not familiar with them. What exactly? I'm sorry. The Kamari House. What exactly is that?
May I?
You're recognized.
It's a problem that we're going to have tonight that we need to look at also. We give them a lot of money through opioids. So I think the mayor is, he's trying to go by his last year's budget, and he's trying to be fair on it. But we give out a lot of money. And Michael, how much did we give Kamari House?
$95,268 of opioid money last year. Also, part of the policy that this body has set for us, it is documented in the outside agency funding request. This body has directed our office before I got here to cap it at $2,500 is where the mayor's getting that from. It is written for the first time. And so that's why there's zero is their funding that they had gotten before a nonprofit got moved to opioid committee last year. And so that's why they had a zero for last year on this sheet, because they've been funded out of opioid money.
So let me follow up with that. So if the opioid fund is giving $95,000 to Kamari House, that doesn't count towards their first time in appealing to the budget process, because there's two different buckets completely. Isn't that right? And so is this, as a technical matter going forward, would this be the first time they've asked for money from the county if we don't include opioid grant money?
I think they'd gotten money like 3 years ago or a year, like the year before this.
Okay.
Through this. And so, I mean, it's really the rules of this body that could reset it, but that's been the direction we've gotten, so that's just what we've always followed. But last year they got a little over 95,000 approved through opioid.
And Commissioner Harris, what is the Kamari House?
What they do is when someone's addicted to drugs and lose their kids, they have counseling, and they also bring the kids to them so that they can see them, which is a form of rebuilding. So they're very good as far as our scores on how we rank and how we rate them. They did very well. They had a very successful. We are more than likely, it comes up next month, Michael, but I think we will approve their funding again. I'm assuming. I mean, they could, but we have no reason not to. They've done a good job. That's one of the things I'm worried about, because I was looking at Child Advocacy Center. You know, we just gave them a tremendous amount of money, $42,000, and then we're giving them $1 million. And I mean, Mayor's Office and opioid need to work together more. I think this stuff's been in here, Mayor Carr, for a while, and I think you're doing, you know, we need to communicate with you better on that. So I would probably say on this $2,500 that don't approve that and put that to zero, because they're getting a donation out of opioid. I'd make a motion to change. Is it 2,500? I would make a motion to change that from 2,500 to zero.
I have a motion to change. Do I hear a second on the motion? I have a second. Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? Hear no discussion. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno? Yes. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. So
Mr. Chairman, could I ask,
you're recognized.
could you provide is there a list available of how many of these other, I mean, Chairman Harris just mentioned child advocacy getting a lot of money. Could we maybe revisit the ones we've already talked about, and going forward identify how much they're getting from other sources? Or
Michael.
Add those numbers if you want them.
Well, I tell you what I can do. We're going to cover those tonight under the category for, I believe it's alcohol and drug programs. We were going to cover those tonight if they're getting money from opioid. But if you want, I can run and we can make a copy of a list. I can run and get a copy of a list for you.
My suggestion would be to leave what we've already done, and we will be seeing those, as he said, when we look at the opioids list. And if you want to make a change at that time, I would suggest making it there, if that's okay with the committee, if you want to address it now.
Yeah, I'm okay, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'd like to see the list, because it's a little unusual maybe, but I've got a bunch of calls on this stuff lately, especially the $1 million capital contribution, and it's a bit stunning so far that no one has shown up. Any of these
Well,
organizations?
like I said, in the past, it's been our policy that if you agree with the mayor's recommendation, we've actually asked them not to talk, just for expediency's sake. So it's not a surprise that,
Fair
that
then.
most of these are not here because they do agree. Now, the ones that don't agree, now that's the ones that you would usually have, that, and if they have something special they would like to let the public know about. So there's that case also.
I got somebody bringing a list, so we'll pass out a list.
All right. So that gets us back to the Kamari House on our publication list that will not be funded. Salvation Army, I think we've already, I've skipped, is that a second? Okay, on the Salvation Army, they requested 20,000. I thought I'd already covered that one, sorry. And the mayor does not have a recommendation for Salvation Army. They were not funded last year. Any questions about the request from the Salvation Army or any motion? Anyone here from the Salvation Army would like to speak? Hearing none. Hearing no suggestions from the committee, we will leave that not funded per the mayor's request and have that for publication also. Next is the Boys and Girls Club. They requested $75,000. The mayor has recommended $25,000. They had $2,500 last year, so I assume that was their first year. Any questions about the contributions for the Boys and Girls Club from the committee? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation for $25,000 and add that to our publication list. Next is H3 ARC. No requests, nothing last year, and no suggestion from the mayor. Community Helpers is the next. They had a request of $5,000. They had $3,500 last year. The mayor's recommendation is for $5,000 for Community Helpers. Any questions from the committee on Community Helpers? Anyone from the audience or Community Helpers that would like to speak? Okay. Hearing no change suggested, we also are going to accept the mayor's recommendation for $5,000 for publication. Flipping over to our next page.
Chairman,
Yes.
we've got a list to hand out, and the reason I'm paused on this one also has, if you're asking of who's getting funded elsewhere, Community Helpers also has some opioid money. That's the list of what's already been approved by the opioid committee. As Commissioner Harris mentioned, Kamari House, I believe, has an application that'll be voted on next month. I believe Kamari, it's next month. But this is what has already been approved on the first round of opioid funding for next year. We'll cover the vote on this later tonight, but as you're looking at this, this is what's in opioid or proposed for opioid next year.
Melissa, you got an extra one? I've seen them, I just don't remember all of them, so not the figures for sure. Thank you. Okay. Our next item is the Doors of Hope request for $10,000. They had $2,500 last year. The mayor's recommendation is $2,500 for this year. Any comments on Doors of Hope?
This is one of those that I thought Chairman Harris had under the I actually thought was under the opioid. And looking at this list,
it was. We voted on that at the last meeting not to fund the Doors of Hope this year from our committee.
You voted not to?
That's correct.
Okay, and I thought you did, so I got my information wrong.
They submitted an application, they voted after your budget was proposed. This was voted on in at their last meeting, so this can't, your recommendation was before their vote.
Okay, thank you, Michael. In any event, this was one of those that I thought the opioid committee was addressing, which is why I didn't feel compelled to do the increases requested. So if the committee wants to revise that recommendation, there would be no objection from the mayor.
Well, the Doors of Hope do good work, and they've done good work in the past. There's just the opioid funds are, like everything else, are limited. So that's why the opioid board made that decision. But anyway, the mayor's recommendation is for $2,500. Do I hear any committee member make a change? Hearing none, we'll accept mayor's recommendation of $2,500. Feed America First requested $2,500, and I think this is the first request. The mayor suggested $2,500. And any questions or anybody here from Feed America First that would like to speak? Hearing none. Anybody from the committee wants to suggest any changes for Feed America First? Hearing none, we'll add the $2,500 to our publication list. United Way has requested $5,200. They got $2,500 last year, and the mayor has suggested $2,500 this year. Anybody from United Way wishes to speak? Hearing none. Anybody from the committee have a suggestion? Hearing none, we will put $2,500 down as the mayor's recommendation for publication for United Way. Next is Greenhouse Ministries. They requested $8,500. They got $5,000 last year. The mayor's recommendation is $7,500. That's Greenhouse Ministries. Any questions on the Greenhouse Ministries? Any suggestions to make a change? Anyone here from Greenhouse would like to speak? Okay, hearing no recommendations for change, we'll accept the mayor's recommendation of $7,500 for publication. Next is Liberty Station. They requested $44,000. They got $2,500 last year. The mayor's recommendation is for $5,000. Any questions on Liberty Station's request? Anyone here from Liberty Station that would like to speak? I do recognize I have someone coming up. I don't have someone coming up. I'm sorry, someone was leaving the audience. The mayor's request is for $5,000. Do I hear anyone from the committee suggest otherwise? Hearing none, we're going to accept Liberty Station's, the mayor's recommendation of $5,000. Bobby's House Ministries, I don't see anything last year or a request, so we'll go to the next item. The Red Cross, they got $2,500 last year. The mayor's recommendation is for $2,500. Do I hear any request from the committee to make any changes, or anyone from the Red Cross that would like to comment? Only comment I got about the Red Cross is get out and give blood, guys. A lot of people need it. Any requested changes? Hearing none, the mayor's recommendation of $2,500 will be sent to publication. Abundant Life Christian Academy, I don't see anything last year or a request, so we'll go to the next item. Barnabas Vision has requested $15,000. I think this is their first year, so this is their second year. Okay. They got $2,500 last year. The mayor's recommendation is for $5,000. Do I hear any suggested changes from the committee, or anyone here from Barnabas would like to speak? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation of $5,000 and move to Possible Place. They requested $2,500. I assume this is a first year request. The mayor did not make a recommendation to fund that. Do I hear any suggestions or a change there? Anyone here from Possibility Place that would like to speak? Hearing none, we're going to honor the mayor's request. There will be no funding there this year. First Shot Foundation, the mayor has made a recommendation of $2,500. And I assume this is one of these that got it in a little late, Mayor.
Yes, sir, and I talked to Andy Herzer, quite coincidentally. I don't know when it was. Like my days are running together during budget season, Mr. Chairman, but it's either late last week or early this week, and I ran into him, and there was an administrative error within his organization. They sent it in. He signed it. It didn't get sent in by his administrative assistant, and anyway, this is one of those snafus, and until we get the documentation, it won't be dispersed if it's approved by the committee.
Thank you, Mayor Carr. Any suggested changes for the First Shot Foundation? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation and move to Transit Alliance. They had a request for $1,000. They did not have anything last year. The mayor is not suggesting any funding this year. Any changes the committee would like to make? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation there. Michael, this total, $1,645,208, that includes the advocacy capital campaign, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we have not.
And then we took 2,500 out. So the new total right now is $1,642,708.
No, and we have not considered child advocacy yet. So is there anyone here from the Child Advocacy Center that would like to speak at this time? I know, like I said, I've had some people, they must have a snafu on the time that we were doing this, that was wanting to speak, that are board members that wanted to speak. I would suggest that the committee maybe look at this at a different date if they still want to go forward with their requests, and I assure you they do. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the committee, I can certainly call Mr. Weitzel, the chair of the Child Advocacy. He can get in touch with the staff, and I know they've talked to several members of the commission, and because this is such a sizable amount, and because the county does have a statutory obligation, it just depends on how we want to meet that obligation. I think it'd be a good idea if we do move this to a later date, I contact them and let them come in and make a presentation for the capital request.
If you don't mind, Carl, I spoke to Mr. Weitzel myself today, and that's why I say I assure you they did want to speak and make a request themselves. But what I would like to do, if you could contact them, if someone wants to come tonight, we can put them later in the agenda on this specific item.
Well,
but I want to go ahead and vote without that in there on this amount, though.
Well, if you like, we can push this particular item to the heel of tonight's calendar. I can step out and try to contact Mr. Weitzel to see if it's possible for somebody to come.
What's the
I'm at
will
the
of the committee? We just push this to the heel, look at it? Okay, that's what we'll do on that. I think we can go ahead and vote on the rest of these and leave it. Or you think we need to wait, Michael?
Well, we went ahead and voted on the 2,500. And so if we treat this like we've done all the other budgets, there would be no vote taken unless you want to pull the $1 million out.
Okay.
We've already voted to pull the 2,500, and then everything else stayed in. We accepted the mayor's recommendation.
What's the will of the committee on this? We would have to pull this out, or it would automatically, under our rules that we've got of accepting the mayor's recommendation, we'd either have to pull it out to look at it later or pull it out, period. Vice Chairman, you?
Well, I was going to ask about something else real quick, but I'll go ahead and make a motion to pull it out until we can get further clarification. Also, I noticed that if we can't get them here tonight, the 29th is kind of a budget cleanup. We could also have them come then.
All right. I'll let Michael let me know about the agenda, but
That
your motion would be the 29th.
So that would be the if you're not going to hear it at the end tonight, the 29th would be the time to hear that before it goes to publication.
Okay, I've got a motion Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Is everybody clear on what we're saying here? We're voting on these items we've just got over, other than the mayor's recommendation for the Child Advocacy Center capital projects of $1 million.
If we may, before the mayor steps out, can we go back to the Salvation Army? Have we made a donation to them before? I noticed they've requested 20 and the mayor hasn't recommended anything. And I was just wondering if we've given to them before, or what's the rationale behind your decision, Mr. Mayor?
Two things. If we have, I don't recall it, which is more than possible. And number two, when I get a request for a large amount like that if we have done is a substantial increase and they don't come see me, we're back to, well, I'd appreciate hearing the justification for such a large increase. They didn't make an appointment to see me. So,
I understand.
And that was, that, again, you can argue with the logic, and I don't have a problem with that, but that was the logic.
No, I'd have to dig further to see what this is for, but the last time it looks like we made a payment to them was in 2022, before my time here. So I'd have to, but we haven't made one in the last couple of years, no.
And just to be clear, they were invited to come and speak with you. They knew that, or?
Well, to be very clear and be very specific, nobody's specifically invited, but when you submit an application, the general understanding is unless it's a significant increase, there's no need to come because the committee's already voted previously. But when you make a significant increase, it's generally understood there needs to be a justification for the increase. Example, Boys and Girls Club. They asked for $75,000, even though we gave $2,500 a year ago, but we did $25,000 this year. And the reason is I got a visit from them. They're trying to expand their reach in the Laverne Middle School area, and that is a part of that initiative. And so they came in to present a justification, and that was missing here.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second to vote on what we've amended for the mayor's recommendation, other than the child advocacy building request of $1 million. That's going to be looked at on the 29th under this motion. Mr. Irvin, Commissioner Irvin.
I just want to clarify because I had a little different understanding of the motion.
Yeah, I want to clarify the motion also, please.
Well,
Can I read it back to you?
please.
So if I understood the motion correctly, we've already voted to remove $2,500. Your motion was to remove the $1 million child advocacy request. So that motion would bring this total budget to $642,708, with the request that we either hear that item later tonight or on the 29th if they can come.
That's good.
Okay,
That was a good note taken right there.
Either tonight or on the 29th, just at a later date.
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. Any questions from anybody on the committee what we're fixing to vote on? I want to, call roll on this one unless do I hear any more discussion? Okay, call roll.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, that motion carries, and as soon as we hear back from the mayor or this group, we can decide whether that's going to be on the 29th or maybe later. Commissioner Irvin.
Yeah, I was trying to, as I've kind of gone through this a little bit, I'm trying to understand, so the purpose of the county giving money, and then we have opioid money also, and I'm trying to figure out kind of the goal of the county giving money. Been asked this question a couple times recently. Why does the county give money to these organizations, and what is the interrelationship, and I'm glad Commissioner Harris brought that up, with the opioid group that seems to give a lot of money to the same groups. So I'm wondering if there could be a little clarification as to what the county gives money for, what the goal is, what the opioid folks give money for, what the goal is, and basically guidelines, things along those lines, because it strikes me as community helpers is getting $5,000, okay, but we gave them the opioid board, and now the commission is giving them $193,000, and is there separate goals, or what am I missing? I guess is what I'm trying to ask, because I
think
don't know.
Chairman Harris answered part of that. We need to do a little better job of communication, but most of these that are on the sheets that you are seeing are people and agencies that have been there for many years. The ROB board, the Rutherford Opioid Board, is basically a new entity. We just started dispersing these funds that we are getting from these drug companies, from the federal government, from the state. So some of that money is new. Now, a lot of these agencies had received money during the COVID period, and to help with that, that was some of their funding. Almost all that funding is gone now, so a lot of these agencies are looking to find other places for funding, and that's where part of this double, when you see somebody apply for the county, usually they're already there, and these people that have come back and applied, they're specifically opioid related. So if you see them on the opioid board's approval, that's because they've made a significant contribution to help mitigate this opioid problem. That's why you're seeing two different lists. Now, whether you agree with that or not, we've seen fit on the opioid board to give them some money. You can see that they're reduced, but not to go into a long detail, Chairman Harris will do a lot better job with that, but basically we partner with MTSU, and these people are looked at very thoroughly. The number of people they help, what percent of their money goes to what, whether it's treatment. We don't favor giving money for personnel as a rule, but it's very stringent. If you score high enough to get on our radar, you're doing a very good job for the community. And one thing I will say about the opioid board, state of Tennessee, we've had increase in deaths for opioid deaths across this state. One of the big exceptions is this county, and part of it is what we're doing on that board, and these people that you're looking at here are the reason for those lives being saved. So that's
right. I'm trying to understand that, and that's a very excellent explanation. I appreciate that. The other piece is, from what I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, is a lot of the things the county is contributing to are basically legacies. Or when's the last time that really a good hard look was taken at what we give money for, and kind of what are we trying to accomplish? What's the goal of the county's money to nonprofits? Just trying to understand that.
I think, and you're new on this committee, and I'll tell you what the
Fair
problem
enough.
is they've done exactly what we've asked them to do and not show up. I'm telling you, when these people, these nonprofits are here in front of you to explain what their job and what they're doing for the county, what you'll find, I think Mayor and most of the people who've been here for a while will see, the money that we're giving to these agencies in a lot of cases are keeping the county from having to pick that up and do it anyway. If these guys weren't coming in here and doing this job, we'd be doing it. We'd be funding all of this. These agencies are actually very much underfunded, in my opinion, from the county for the amount of money that they're saving us. I mean, that's my take on it. Mayor, you want to address that?
I do. I think you have absolutely hit the nail on the head. What is it we're trying to accomplish? What we're trying to do is what the opioid board's doing, what recovery court's doing, and that we're trying to partner with entities, groups in our community to do a bit of prevention, so we don't have to, that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, do we always, Mr. Chairman, make the best decision? No. But what we're trying to do is we're actually, I think, making an investment in keeping the cost as a result of all the different addictions that are out there, whatever it is, and we're trying to participate with these organizations that through a lot of private funding, and we're trying to support them in a preventive way. Again, like the ROB and like the Recovery Court are two excellent examples.
Hopefully that answered part of your question.
Oh, yeah, it does, and thank you, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I guess the question I would have then is, when's the last time a study was done or anything along those lines to kind of assess these organizations and the effectiveness of these organizations versus what it sounds like we have from putting together a couple comments from earlier, kind of a statutory obligation of some sort. Okay, in other words, if we have that obligation, it would seem like, from my perspective, and you're right, absolutely right, I've only been here a relatively short period of time relative to a number of y'all, but at the same time, it seems like there's a gap, so to speak, in kind of the analysis and the goals and accomplishing the goals. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm trying to understand, you know, kind of like if it's statutory type goals, if it's mitigation, if it's an ounce of prevention type thing, well, is that what we're really accomplishing here? And I don't know the answer, but I'm curious if there's been a study or something along those lines done that would support that, or a process that could be put in place to kind of revisit some of these. And I'm not trying to do it this cycle. I'm just trying to think through going forward, because right now I'm getting disconnects from a number of folks.
Well,
I'm trying to understand what's the goal and what are we trying to do and what's the best way to solve it. Just like with the opioid, that sounds like an excellent program from what I've heard so far.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could I just
Chairman
maybe add?
Harris had requested to speak. Let me recognize him first, and I'll get to you, Chairman.
The way I kind of look at this, the Child Advocacy Center is something that we've supported for a number of years, a good long while. The cause is probably as important as any other charitable contribution that we make as a county. The opioid board is federal money that we've got to spend how we want. I look at it like the Child Advocacy Board. We will continue to support that with county funds, but they've requested additional money through the opioid board for either a new program or an expanded program in and above what the county supports. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's different than what the county spends on it. It's something above and beyond.
Thank you.
Chairman Harris, you're recognized.
Now, Commissioner Irvin, we do not give recurring money. So we're strictly on merit base. So we have MTSU that we have hired, and they have grant tours, and they have to go through. Then they come back, we grade them, and then we decide to give them another year. They'll ask for money, you know, they could ask for $500,000 and we'll say no. So we evaluate every single person we give money to. So I think we need to do a better job of communicating with the mayor and knows this, especially at budget year, because I can see where this is. Know where you're going on that, so we'll do a better job, and I'll get with Michael and we'll find a better way to communicate. I cannot attest to what I think, are you saying that you want to know what the county has, a way of ranking these?
No, not ranking per se. Yeah, and I really appreciate the kind of the explanation on the opioid side. I guess the question would be, is there the same rigor that it sounds like is being applied as described by you and Commissioner Harris and by the chairman? Is there the same rigor applied to the contributions by the county? I don't know the answer. In other words, is there some, it sounds like a lot of them are legacy, so I get that to Chairman's point, and they've grown, I guess, dependent on it, and okay. But at some point, we need to kind of just take a look to make sure what's being spent on, and that kind of gets to the next point is, okay, the first being the rigor, upfront rigor, but also the after the contribution follow-up. I mean, I'm not familiar with kind of the audit function or anything along those lines that we would do on some of these organizations, either on the capital side, for example, the Advocacy Center, or on the operating funds that are contributed. And I'm just not familiar. I haven't heard, and maybe y'all can help me understand better, the process that we go through to check to make sure our money is going to where we think it's going, and it's being well managed, et cetera. And that's all my question is.
Mayor, you're
Yeah,
recognized.
just real quick, hopefully to wrap this up. I think in many cases on this list, I know the either the CEO of the charitable organization or the president or the director. I know many on this committee know those directors personally. I'm not the first mayor to entertain these requests. And so is there a formal process, Mr. Commissioner, by which we evaluate the return on investment for which we're making to ensure it's being used appropriately? There's no formal process that I employ. I just know the character of these people, and I try to watch and monitor the work that they do in our community. And I listen to, quite honestly, what they're saying in social media. So if they're saying something in social media that's a departure from the prescribed values of this body, then it does give me pause. And which is why, of all the things that we do in the budget, this is the one part where I think the committee can weigh in and provide perspective, because my perspective certainly isn't the only one. And I mean, if you have some information about one of these organizations that I or the committee need to know about, this would be the night to speak up and say, are you aware of this particular issue with this particular 501c3? I would probably have to say no. So we do the best we can. We do review them, and I try to get to know them, which is why I don't always grant an increase if they don't come in. So that's the best explanation I have for you, Mr. Commissioner.
And that's fine. I'm not proposing anything for this cycle. It's more of a next budget and next cycle
All right.
thought process. I appreciate that, though.
All right. Guys, we're going to move on. We have voted to wait on the request for the $1 million that's been removed at this time. And we're waiting on a call back. Whenever that comes, we may see it on the 29th, or if not, maybe sooner. Anyway, we're going to move along to the next item, which is the Tennessee Rehabilitation Center. That's on page 35, section 4. Michael, do we have anybody here that's going to present on this one? Okay, the Rehab Center on page 35, that's the other local health services, is that right? No?
This is another nonprofit entity. Just so the committee knows, our nonprofit entities are spread out over multiple accounts. This one just happens to need to be an account number that's different by itself. This account category is general welfare assistance. It just happens to be the only thing in that account is the Tennessee Rehab Center. Last year they got $55,750. This year they requested $57,422, and the mayor has requested to leave them at the same amount as last year, which is $55,750.
Any questions on the mayor's recommendation? Any suggestions for a change?
Chairman, where is this at? I can't find it.
It's in the middle of page 35, about half, well, like I said, almost in the middle of that page. General Welfare Assistance, 55510 is the number. This is one that we've been doing since I've been on the commission. I see Chairman Phillips agrees that Yeah. It does assist our rehabilitation for a lot of citizens in this county. Hearing no suggestions for change, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation of $55,750, and we'll move on to journeys in community living on 35. And the problem I'm running into is the way I've got it listed here and what I'm seeing in my book is two different headings. Michael, you want to tell us where this one is?
It's on about page 3 of tab number 1.
Yep.
This is another nonprofit entity. Last year they received $37,800. This year they requested the same amount, and the mayor put in his budget that same amount of $37,800.
Do I hear any suggested changes from the committee? Hearing none, we will accept the mayor's recommendation and move to our next one.
While we're flipping, if you're on if you're under the last page under tab 1, I've tried to summarize all of the nonprofits, and those account numbers are out to the left. So as we're looking through these, it may be easier just to look at that page that's front and back, instead of looking through the entire general fund expense book.
It'll help me instead of having to flip back and forth, that's for sure. So the next one that we'll be looking at is the Journeys in Community Living and the library system is the next one. Rutherford County Library System.
I think we have somebody here tonight for that.
We do? Well, welcome. I recognize this lady. And I'll tell y'all the same thing that I request anybody that comes up to speak, please give us your name and your position of what you're representing.
Good evening. My name is Mindy Barrett. I am the branch manager at Linebaugh Public Library, and I am also serving as the interim director right now. I appreciate this opportunity to stand before you and justify our requested increase. To start with, I'd like to give you a recap of a very unique situation that we were in last year with our budget and the funding from our funding bodies. We did receive level funding in 2024-25, but the library board approved the budget as it was written in an effort to decrease the fund balance that we had. Our fund balance was a subject of concern last year. What that means is that we operated over what was provided by all of our funding bodies. This year, if you're looking at the numbers of what was funded last year as well as what we're asking for this year, it appears to be a 5.7% increase. However, if you look at what we actually operated at in order to reduce that fund balance, our request increase is 2.11%. In addition to reducing our fund balance by supplementing the funding that we received last year, we also had an agreement to send $1 million back to our funding bodies. So that will have happened by the end of this fiscal year, this rebate program. $527,392 was returned specifically to Rutherford County. And our request for the 25-26 budget is an increase of $118,385. If we are kept to the proposed budget and level funding, we will have received level funding for 3 consecutive years, while the cost of utilities and maintenance contracts have increased. Without an increase this year, we will have to make the hard decision that is going to impact the quality of services that we can offer to the community, which could be no new positions, the security services that we have at Linebaugh for safety, as well as digital access to materials. Finally, because it was a point of concern last year that our fund balance was so high, on October 21st of 2024, our library board approved policy PM 614, which prevents the RCLS fund balance from increasing in the future. So it will not get to that point that it was at before. And it will ensure that we will continue to return funds back to the funding bodies if those funds are not used. So that's kind of a little bit of background. I'd like to answer your questions, and I will also share some good news, because that's kind of sad. But does anyone have questions?
Can you tell us what you have right now in your in-funding balance?
Our fund balance right now, the goal was to get it to 1.5.
So you have 1.5?
And that is the policy that was passed by the board, was that it will not exceed that at any point. And if it does, those funds will be sent back to the funding bodies.
So my question is, if you have 1.5 million balance, the mayor's recommendation is 100 and something thousand less than what you want. Why would we cut program?
Because that, based on this policy, that money has been set aside if we have to. It basically pays for salaries, insurance, and operating expenses for 6 months for all of our branches. So if we keep chipping away at that, then we won't have that in that instance.
Any other questions from the committee?
I know that our chair has some things to share as well. Before I pass that over to him, I do want to let you all know that the Rutherford County Library System was awarded a GELF grant, which is going to enable us to provide a second bookmobile to the county. We're very excited for that, and very recently Murfreesboro City has donated a decommissioned bus, so we can use that for a second bookmobile. And shameless plug, if you don't have a library card, I recommend that you get one, and I'll give you my business card and I can make that happen for you.
I have one more question.
Yes.
So the school board is having some situations with banning books, and there was not 3 lawsuits filed. Has there been any lawsuits filed against you?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the committee. My name is Phil King. I'm currently the board chair for the library system. I have been on the library board for 6 years. My term as board chair ends at the end of June. Being on the board, what I've learned is that our library is a county system, if you will. We are measured against the cities, meaning Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga. What has happened since I've been on the board is and this is no secret to all of you, our population numbers have increased. We have overtaken Chattanooga, for example. Our budget has not, in a good way. I mean that in a good way. Their budgets are double digit in the millions. Ours is not. But what we find when we are ranked is we offer more programs for our citizens, and our citizens are using the library in various ways. In other words, the library system is delivering the biggest bang for the buck when you look at also the square footage. Everybody else has hundreds of thousands of square feet, easily. And we have less than 100,000 square feet when you consider all of our locations. So our libraries are getting used, and the money that is being spent on them is being well used. With the new bookmobile, ironically, before this second one became possible, the people that handle the book, the one we have now, were wanting to reach out to new areas. By having the second one, we will double the reach within the county. I mean, specifically Smyrna and other areas, easily. And so this is something that everybody's really excited to look for. Again, I appreciate everything, and thank you very much.
Thank you, guys, for showing up. Now I'm going to address the committee. You can have a seat unless I've got a question from any of the committee members before you go. Hearing none. Thank you, guys. Do I hear any suggestions or requests from the committee on the library board's proposed budget? Hearing none and hearing no suggestions for change, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation for publication, which is the same, I believe, as last year. Next is tourism. Michael, I'm showing page 38 on that, and I don't see tourism. Is that under the chamber, or where are we looking at that one?
So the easiest way to look at this is also going to be on that summary page on the back of tab 1. Yeah, and it's going to be on the back page of that. It's labeled contributions. Should be under 58110-316. That's the easiest place to look at that. I can go over what's in there if you'd like, or
If you don't mind, and you're saying the contributions are the same as what we're saying here is tourism. Mm-hmm. Okay.
mm-hmm. If you look at the account number for the committee on your agendas, there should be a 58110 there. It's going to be page 38 if you're looking at the actual general fund, but the easiest place to look at it is on the back of that nonprofit summary page. I'll go through it real quick. At the top there, on the back of that page, you'll see $825,000. That is always an estimate. That is where we give 15% of hotel motel taxes to the Chamber of Commerce. So that number will fluctuate every year. We update that number at the end of the year based on the amount of hotel motel taxes that we get. That's just an estimate, the 825. And then you can see the rest of the nonprofits. I'll read them out. Heritage Center, the Main Street Incorporation, Oakland's Association, Sam Davis Home, and then the Children's Museum, Corp. Rutherford County, that's the Discovery Center right over here off Broad Street. And then Center for the Arts. And then you can see their request there in the column, and then you'll see the mayor's requests right there next to it.
Is there anyone here from any of these agencies besides the chamber, the Heritage Center, Main Street, Oakland's, Sam Davis, or the Discovery Center that would like to speak? If not, you have seen the requests there. In most cases, well, I'll go through those. The chambers, as he said, is an estimate. The Heritage Center is the same. And the request was the same on Main Street, same as last year. The Oakland's Association asked for $20,000. They got $12,000 last year. The mayor's recommendation is $12,000. Sam Davis Home is $12,000 last year. They requested $15,000. The mayor's recommendation is $12,000. I just want to make sure that we bringing out the request versus what we're actually looking at the mayor's recommendation. And then the Discovery Center is also $22,500 last year. That was their request and also the mayor's recommendation. Having said that, also the Center for the Arts, they asked for $10,000. They got $2,500 last year, and the mayor's recommendation is $2,500, and that's a total of $918,350. Do I hear any suggestions for change or discussion from the committee on these tourism items? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation. That total, again, is $918,350. That'll bring us to...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could I ask a quick question? Michael, this is a quick question for you. How is the hotel motel tax divvied up? Like, okay, it's 15% Chamber of Commerce.
I thought you were going to keep, so, I thought there was a follow-up. So out of the hotel motel tax, 15% goes to the Chamber of Commerce, 5% goes to the city of Murfreesboro for the Greenway, and the rest goes into our county general fund. That is a situs tax, or equal to a situs tax for us, because if you remember, the cities have their own hotel motel tax. And so we've used that in the past in the general fund to fund the startup of the fire department in the past, because it's a situs revenue.
County hotel motel tax, Chamber of Commerce 15%, City of Murfreesboro Greenway 5%, County General is 80%. Is that ever audited?
Yes, so the county clerk's office does hire a firm to do hotel motel tax audits. We have found sometimes where we have not been paid adequately. I believe if you look at steering's coming up meeting or the last meeting, there is something on the litigation list for that. I'd have to go back and look, or there was talk of that.
I think we started auditing them 2 years ago, Michael.
So the county clerk,
Same question.
yeah, the county clerk hires a firm, a CPA firm, or somebody to audit that, and they go around and do that on a sample basis.
The county clerk does it for the entire county or only
For our
Okay,
purposes, yes.
thank you.
And then I believe those are set by resolution and contracts. I believe the 15's by resolution, and because we're grandfathered under an old hotel motel tax, I'd have to go look at that. I don't have it in front of me. And then I believe that the 5% is a contract with the city.
Oh, so this is all set by resolution?
I believe Michael's correct on that. I know that 15% was, and I'm pretty sure the rest, the distribution, we voted on multiple times. It's changed over the years some, but as far as I know, Chairman Phillips may correct me, but we set that at the commission level, the percentage how that money is dispersed.
There's some obligation to pay the chamber some amount, either contractually or statutorily?
Not that I'm aware of.
There was a general law that passed. I believe we're grandfathered into a part of the Private Act. I will have to go research that and get back to you. But I believe ours is set, grandfathered into the resolution where it was set many years ago. It does have to go towards certain things. Hotel motel taxes have to go towards certain things that involve tourism and growth and things like that. But I believe ours was set back before the general law changed.
Thank you, thank you.
Chairman, so there's an increase of $75,000. So our hotel motel tax went up that much? So we made more revenue in hotel motel tax? And so that's what constitutes this higher figure?
That's correct. You should also see an increase on the revenue page as well of that, if you look at the revenue, but yes.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee on that? Hearing none, the $918,350 we're going to accept for publication. I think I've already said that, but we'll move to the next item, which is Destination Rutherford and the Economic Development Council. And I think that's the next thing down under contracts with public agencies. Is that correct, Michael?
That's correct.
Okay, so Destination Rutherford got $135,000 last year. That's what they're requesting, and that is the mayor's recommendation. Any questions from the committee on the mayor's recommendation or suggestions for change? Hearing none, we're going to accept contracts with other agencies for $135,000 for publication and move to our next one, which is emergency management. That'll be on page 30.
Evening, Chris Clark, Public Safety Director. And we are gladly accept the mayor's recommendation.
Director Clark was out chasing storms and trees last night, so he may be a little tired today. But done an excellent job, by the way.
Chris, does 911 operators come out of this budget?
Yes, sir.
How are we doing on that?
Fully staffed.
Any questions for Director Clark? Like a pretty level budget to me. Actually, a little bit of a decrease, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And you've added, what, one personnel that I just met? Maybe that's a replacement.
It's a replacement.
Okay, okay. Any questions from the committee on this budget request for disaster relief, which is emergency management? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation. That's $5,238,403. Thank you, Director Clark.
Thank you.
Okay, the highway fund. Here's another guy who's been chasing trees all night, so been doing a lot of work the last several days.
Good evening, everyone. I am the Rutherford County Road Superintendent. My name is Greg Brooks, and I'm here tonight to present to you our annual operating budget that was voted on by our Highway Commission at our April 3rd meeting and approved. And I don't know exactly what you guys see on your stuff, but we are projecting a revenue of $16,031,117, and we're anticipating expenditures in the amount of $15,932,422. So we have a few increases, a few decreases from last year, but most of what you see in the decreases comes from our capital outlay, which is some equipment purchases and some bridge work, as well as a state aid road project. So if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If I can, I'm sure Ms. Mary can. I will say, I like the budget committee meetings better when they were held in 205 because we had a table to spread all our stuff out on. So,
One thing too we'll mention is this is not a mayor recommendation on this particular one. So we will need a motion on this one way or the other once we finish. But
yeah, again, this was approved by our road board at our April meeting.
Mr. Brooks, on mineral severance tax, you have $100,000. Is that in anticipation of the new law that just passed?
It does not. It's just, it's, hopefully, yes. It will be going up. I think it's implemented over 5 years. Is that right? Or 10?
Yeah, it starts July.
Starts July 1st. And then implementation, it's a 5% increase? 5%. And it's? 10% after 5, and then 15. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I was hoping to, and I know you were too, hoping for a little more, but we'll take what we can get. It hadn't been changed since it was implemented in 1983 or something, so it's a little overdue. But again, we're happy to see some additional revenue.
Greg, just out of curiosity, what will be your fund balance or percentage maybe?
I think
Maybe that'd be a better way to put it.
we're around 138% funded, if I'm not mistaken. Michael, do you have that?
While he's looking that up, I'll remind y'all that Mr. Brooks and his group have saved us a substantial amount of money on the road to our new transfer station out at Walter Hill, which would have, those of you that are on the purchasing committee are well aware of the difference in the bids that we got versus the amount of money that we're saved. What I'm seeing, what, $6 million? So anyway, tell this guy thank you when you get a chance.
It's going to be closer to 150%.
150%.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Greg, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. So 138 or 150% seems large to me. Can you kind of help explain the fund balance and what the need for that is at what would appear to be on first blush like a pretty large fund balance?
Well, yes, and that is a good question because it does appear to be a large number. However, that fund balance is there to mitigate any catastrophic events that we have, which, you know, at any moment we could be like they are in Kentucky right now or like they were.
So, as an example, when we had the tornadoes in Reedville a couple of years ago, would that be an example of
that would be an example,
we
yes.
need that fund balance? Would that be accurate?
That is accurate, but that's just one layer of it. Like if we need to build or rehabilitate a bridge, you know, bridge works like everything else. It's gone up, depending on who you ask, it's gone up 50 to 100%. But when you're talking about such a large number, you know, to rehabilitate a bridge, you know, it's $4 or $5 million. It goes quickly. So that's.
And I think that's based on our experience of what happened in Reedville and what happened last night. I can see where you're trying to plan for a catastrophic event. And based on that criteria, in your mind, what is an appropriate level of fund balance as a percentage in your mind?
Well, I don't think there's a number to exceed. You know, it's basically it is our savings account. You know, just a little history. You know, before I was road superintendent, the highway department was able to build a new facility and move in 2004, I think, and it was at that time, you know, in 2003, I guess is when it started. I don't know, maybe in 2002, but you know, it's a $2 million facility over there that would easily cost probably $8 million now. It would be, and they did that out of their fund balance. It didn't cost the taxpayers any additional. There was no bond or anything like that. So it's our savings account. And when I have to make large capital purchases, of course we budget some, you know, equipment and you know, anticipate buying some equipment. But when we have to make large purchases, then we'll draw that from our fund balance and make a budget amendment to make those purchases as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, I will.
A particular point.
You're recognized.
Greg, we're developing more and more out into the extreme rural areas of the county where bridges are one-lane traffic or close to it, and so are the roads. These funds could be used if we do road improvements to rebuild some of those bridges, that type of thing. That's what we could use some of those for if need be.
Yes, that is correct.
Chairman Harris.
I had a conversation with some people. Seven years ago, I questioned your budget and Mary never forgotten that. So in saying that, I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Or any discussion on this proposed budget? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, I will say this. I went to a road board meeting one time when I was early on in my commission career and sat in Mary's chair before she got there, and she politely kicked me out of that chair. I just want to
She is polite.
let the public know that.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Next item is the Health Department. Is Mr. Blair available or here? His request is on page 32, section 4. A lot of his budget is funded through the state too. Michael, can you help me with this one?
So the first one that's going to be on page 32 is the 55-110. That's going to be the local portion. So that's our portion. A couple things I want to point out in there. On line 707, you'll see there's almost $471,000 in there. That's a grant, so there's an offsetting revenue for that grant. If that money doesn't come in through the grant, then we won't do the expenditure. That's to do some improvements. That's an old COVID grant. They paused those grants as part of the Trump administration, pausing some grants. So we've got that in there as a placeholder, but we won't spend it unless the revenue comes in for that. We're kind of waiting to hear back from the federal government. That's a federal grant. The other thing is they did request a new position, but they requested 2 new positions, but they eliminated one. That was all budget neutral as part of that. And of course, this budget is in conjunction with the next one that the next 2 on your list that you'll see, 55-160 and 55-190. The 55-190 budget that's going to be on page 35, that is the portion that's funded by the state. There's a revenue offsetting the majority of that. They have requested nothing as part of their budget this year. They've requested nothing new other than just the regular salary increases that all of our regular county employees would have, other than the first 2 things I just mentioned.
So without that grant money, that's actually it's actually a decrease.
Yes.
Any
The
questions?
local portion did, yes.
The local. And that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, the 55-110, yes.
Any questions from the committee for Michael on this 55-110 account? Which again is the local portion for our health department.
I will also add, there is at the top, you see a salary supplements. So that was originally approved for the previous director during COVID, the COVID time. So I don't know if we've hired a new director yet. I'm looking at Sonia. Have we hired a new? So that salary supplement would have to be voted on. That the new person won't get that. We just had that in there as a placeholder, but that stemmed from the COVID era or time. And so that could come out if this body did not want to give that stipend. But we left it there as just as a discussion item to talk about. So that would be up to this committee. You could also add it later. It's really up to the will. I don't know if Sonia wants to speak to that.
I will tell you the new director, the new health department director started this past Monday. Her name is Sydney. I believe it's Butterfield, and I will be meeting with her tomorrow. John accepted a new position with the state, and he has been working a few days here and the rest of the days at the state, so that's probably why he's not here tonight. But to touch on what Michael said, that $15,000 was for COVID, when COVID was going on, and she was spending the extra hours. So I guess you would just have to decide if you want to make this a county bonus moving forward to this position, or if you wanted to make a change.
Michael, quick question. With that grant money being in question, do we want to approve that money? Because then, or how can we make sure that money is not spent unless?
So it won't. I mean, my office can tell you it won't be spent. Since we've already approved this grant, I mean, we've actually spent a little bit of money on this grant already, and they've approved the reimbursement for that for some architect and engineering. It's about adding an awning and a drive-through lane over there at the health department. The way that works is we will not allow expenditure unless it's approved. I would ask that y'all leave it in there because it could be somewhat time sensitive. But if you pull it out, we need to pull the revenue, but I would ask that y'all, or request that y'all leave that in there with the revenue in. But we're not, that money is earmarked anyway, so we wouldn't be able to spend it without grant approval.
Any questions for Michael on this? If not, I will suggest, as Michael just suggested, that we leave that grant money in there with the knowledge that it will not be spent without the approval and the revenues coming in. Having said that, are there any changes anybody would like to make to this recommended budget? Hearing none, we're going to accept the $1,488,845 on the local health center. That's the 55110. And we'll move to the next section, which is what, page 34, dental?
This is the dental health program section for the health department. It is the exact same as last year.
So the public at home knows, the budget last year was $11,850, and that's the same that's been recommended this time. Any questions from the committee on this dental health program? Here none, we're going to accept that for publication and move to our next one. Other local health, and that's on page 35. This is the state portion, you said, Michael?
That's correct. Now, this budget has to mirror part of the budget that we submit on behalf of the state. Y'all actually see this contract after the budget passes every year that we sign with the state. There's essentially, they reimburse us for all that. We have chosen to put them on the county pay scale, so there are a few positions that we absorb a little bit of an increase, but we have all of the individuals there's 45 positions there are put on the county pay scale, so but 90% of all that's reimbursed by the state.
Any questions from the committee from Michael on the other local health services, 55-190? And as he said, most of this, what did you say, 90%?
I'm saying approximately. It may be 100, and so we're allowed to spend down that grant until it runs out. So if we have some empty positions throughout the year, then 100% of it will be. If everything's full and we spend everything, there will be a little small percentage that we would.
If I'm not mistaken, I recall getting increases in that this last year, didn't we?
Yes. So last year, the state changed how they administered this part. Used to, they absorbed the entire increase. But when several local governments throughout the state started increasing their pay scale faster than the state increased, we had to make a choice. And so they came and met with my office, they met with the mayor's office. We would have had to given those employees a decrease in pay and put them on the state pay plan starting last year. We did not do that, so they've stayed on our county pay plan. So we do get an increase in this contract every year. It increases based on what the state increases their average employee pay. So if we were to increase higher than the state, let's say the state gives 3% and we give 5%, we would eat that 2%. However, they give us the contract as a whole, so if we don't have full positions throughout the entire year, they let us draw down on that. So even we say we're going to budget to eat that 2%, we never do because we have empty positions throughout the year. But we do get an increase in that every year. It's just, it all depends on the salary increases we give versus what the state gives.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions from the committee? Mayor's recommendation is $3,632,994, and as the explanation there is, most of that, if not all, will be reimbursed from the state. Do I have any recommendations for any changes to the mayor's recommendation? Hearing none, we're going to accept $3,632,994 for publication and move to our next, which is recreation. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Reed. I am the County Recreation Director, and this is Mr. John Marshall, who is the Chairman of the Conservation Board. And we proudly accept the Mayor's recommendations for this will be our 56th year of County Rec.
Have a bit of an increase there, and most of that, what is that, salaries and wages?
Yes, sir. We took the mileage out of that would report, and we put that into other salaries.
Okay. Any questions from the committee or our? You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On line item 316, contributions, could you just speak to that?
We don't do the contributions. That comes from Michael.
That's what we pay you.
It's more than $5, so.
That is the 5% of that's the 5% of hotel motel taxes to the Murfreesboro Greenway.
Okay, so that's not an expense. That's a.
This is 5% of hotel motel taxes.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know the answer to his question, so. Why do you not have a line item for maintenance?
We don't really have our own facilities, so we don't have anything to maintain. So, because the local county organizations, they kind of take care of their own stuff, and they can get monies through the grants that is other contracted services.
So like the gyms and stuff?
Yes, sir.
Organizations, they do their own?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Quick question, is the 5% statutory or by resolution, as was pointed out, or?
I'm pretty sure that's a resolution that the commission set. I know it's been about 8 years since that's been changed. I do recall changing it, but most of that was an increase to the
10
chamber.
years, 10 years.
Maybe 10. I don't remember specifically, but that was done through the commission.
That's fair. I was just trying to nail some stuff down.
I'd personally like to see this one a lot higher. We don't spend a lot of money on recreation in the county. But anyway, any other questions to the committee on our conservation board? The only question I ever have is why do we call it a conservation board when it should be called a recreation board? But I've heard from Michael that that's got to do with the state comptroller's office and the way they call it. Statute. Thank you, John. Any motions for a change to the mayor's recommendation? That recommendation is $742,785. Hearing no recommendations for the change, we'll accept the mayor's recommendation for publication. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next is agriculture extension.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anthony Tuggle, Rutherford County Extension Director. We gladly accept the mayor's recommendation.
When can we go get fresh vegetables over at the Ag Park?
Friday. Farmers Market opened May 9th for the first time this year, and it's been great. Actually, probably some of the best couple of years we've had, opening day and all in Tuesday and Friday. We can even come to after 12, open from 7 to 1 on Tuesdays and Fridays.
How many did we have? How many vendors? Do you know?
I think yearly vendor, we got 26, I believe, for the entire year. Most, a little lighter on Tuesday, but most of them shows up on Friday with some additional
Thank you.
walk-ins.
This is always a pretty conservative budget, having served on their board in the past. Any questions for Mr. Tuggle? Or Agriculture Extension? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Tuggle. Good to see you again. That's $1,074,266. Next item is soil conservation. Have anybody from soil conservation? Michael, would you cover that for me? Let's see, that's also on page 37, 57,500.
So the only change to their budget this year is, of course, the salary increases that we've given to all employees. But the only change they requested was an additional $5,000 increase on their contributions line item, and that's it. And they haven't had an increase there in several years, and so that's their only request this year, was for that extra $5,000.
Any questions on the soil conservation board, the 57,500 account numbers? Any requests for change? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation. That's $166,815. We'll accept that for publication and move to our next one, which is the garage. Brian, is Brian here? There he comes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Davenport from the Rutherford County, the director of the Rutherford County Garage, and we gladly accept the mayor's recommendation.
Any question for Brian? Hearing none, we're not hearing of any changes. We're going to accept the mayor's recommendation. Thank you, Brian. And that'll be sent for publication also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes.
This is the second time that a director has gotten up and used the adjective gladly. I want the committee to know that I did not instruct any of them to use any adjectives, but just to accept the recommendation of the mayor. So the gladly was their own initiative.
So noted. All right. Next is the alcohol and drug programs, which is basically our opioid, Rutherford opioid board. Michael, or here's, you may want to kick in on this one too.
Yeah, I did want to make one change. And one is on Michael, help me out here, it's on community health.
Community helpers?
Yes.
Okay.
I will cut that from 193,000 to I will request a motion to cut that 193, be a $93,000.
Okay, I have a motion, or you're making a, you just said you were going to request. Was that a motion that you just made? I'm not.
My motion is to decrease,
So-
which line do you want me to do that?
So I've got one change that I'd like to make too. It's a clerical change. If it's okay, I can restate your motion with my clerical change and then put your request in that. Kind of read that back to you. Okay. want to point out 2 or 3 things. The first is you should have a list in front of you that's a little over almost $1.3 million that Alyssa passed out. You'll notice that's obviously more than what's in the total for the alcohol and drug program budget. That's because on that list of things that the opioid committee's approved, the COPS grant and the probation counselor are budgeted elsewhere in the budget. They're budgeted under those respective departments' budgets. But I have a requested change. It's a clerical change for me now that I've seen a list. This was a budget we put together before the opioid voted because we had to have this together. And so on the advertising category, you'll notice that's $25,918. I need to reduce that by $17,600 and add $17,600 to the $599 line item. That's because that's Rutherford County Schools. That got lumped in with the Rutherford County PIO request for advertising, and that $17,600 is curriculum, and so that needs to be added in 599. So if that change is okay with the committee, if that could be part of Commissioner Harris's motion, and then I believe he would like to reduce community helpers, which is on the list in front of you, from 193 to 100,000. So that's a reduction of 93,000. Is that correct, Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
So you basically have a motion in front of you guys, and I'll need a second if this continues to reduce that line item to 93, or we're taking away 93 and leave 100,000, and also to make the changes to 599, the 17.6, add to that and take that away from the advertising line, same amount. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, I'm doing the math. I'm gonna read you all a new total if that's okay.
Please do, and then I'll ask for a second after we get the numbers.
So that new total would be $886,740. $886,740. So that's a total reduction of 93,000, but that would include the $17,600 shift from advertising down to 599.
Okay, you heard the motion. Do I hear a second? Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion?
I'm trying to tie the 1279, but it doesn't tie to the budget.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. You've got to, so the 109,400 is going to tie directly to contracts with public agency. That's the top one. You see that? It's the very first line on your sheet. This sheet right here, the one Alyssa passed out. So that 109,400 ties directly to that, to line 310. Then the probation counselors, the next one on your list is $77,169. That is not going to be part of what the budget you're voting on. That was part of the probation budget the other night. Then the 831,750, so $8,318, that will be the new advertising 302 line. That is what we're voting on. The next line item, it says COPS grant. That's an estimated amount. Opioid committee has done the matching portion for the COPS grant. That is under the sheriff's office budget that we voted on the other night, so that's not included. And then everything else on there should be in line 599. So you would add the hustle recovery, thriving together, community helpers, recovery is the new high, Rutherford County Schools, Merciful Cold Patrol, and child advocacy.
Again, the total there is $886,740. We do have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Next up is the sanitation and waste removal. Want we people out in the country call that is their dead animal removal contract that we do every year. That's on page 35.
It's the same amount as last year.
Is that the sanitation and waste removal? Which one is that one?
Yes, 42,937 is the dollar amount.
And that's also the mayor's recommendation. Do I hear any discussion or reason for a change? Hearing none, we'll accept the mayor's proposed budget of $42,937 on the sanitation and waste removal budget. Add that to our list for publications. Okay, other public health and welfare. These were the autopsies, Michael.
So line 399 on that is autopsies. You'll notice that is an increase, quite a bit of increase. That's because of the cost of autopsies. I will note that if you look at last year, if we're looking at that, you can see how much we had to amend last year's budget. We spent almost $775,000 last year. So this year you will see another budget amendment coming up next month to account for that. So kind of how we arrived at that $950,000 figure is the new cost of autopsies is based on an average number of autopsies we've done over the year. So we think that's pretty close. It may have to go up a little bit, but we think that's our best guess at this time.
You're recognized, Mayor.
Thank you. Part of the challenge that we have in this regard is typically when Forensic Center increases their rate for autopsies, they do it beginning of the calendar year after 6 months after we have established our budget based on their current rate. And so the last few increases have happened without us knowing what the rate increase is. We get a notification in November or December, beginning in January. They're going to increase the rate, and of course, we've already estimated our budget. So, which is, I think, part of what Michael's saying is the challenge is on getting an accurate number, which is why we're having to come back with a budget amendment.
Well, if the good news is we don't have that many autopsies to have to do, that'll go back to the general fund anyway, wouldn't it, Michael? I don't think he heard that one. On the autopsies, if we're increased and hopefully don't have to spend that money, that'll go back to the general fund at the end of the year. If it's
Oh, yes, so it's in the general fund and it'll never leave. So if we don't spend it, it'll still stay in the general fund.
Okay, so the mayor's proposal is for $970,000. Do I have any questions about this budget? Any recommendations for a change? Hearing none, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation of $970,000 and move to other economic and community developments. That's on page 39. Michael, you want to talk to that? No.
So this is a continuation of a grant that we have this year. And so that's the amount of funds we expect to have next year. So that is offset by our revenue. We've spent a lot of that grant this year, and so we hope to finish that out next year. This was to buy some refrigerated trucks and some things. This is a pass-through grant for some of our nonprofits. And so there's a revenue in the revenue section that'll offset this dollar amount here, this $95,001. That is not a typo. I actually checked to make sure that $1 was right, because I didn't believe Alyssa and her department, but they did tell me that $1 was actually part of the next year's grant revenue.
Any questions for Michael on the other economic and community account?
And specifically, that's our food insecurity grant. So Nourish Food Bank was one of the people we partnered with. I believe the other one may be Greenhouse on part of their food bank.
Yeah, this was a no-match grant. Any questions or any suggestions for change? Hearing none, we're also going to accept the mayor's recommendation of $95,001. That'll be going to publication. Also, next is employee benefits.
You want me to take the rest of these?
Please, I believe that falls under, yes.
So This, I'll go through these four things really quickly, but the first one you're going to see is employee insurance. And so what that is every year we have no idea who's going to take family coverage or single coverage or employee spouse, things like that. So every year we budget this money, and then we'll bring in a budget amendment at the end of the year in June, and we move that to the applicable line items throughout the budget so that we don't have to come out of fund balance, because we know every year somebody's going to have a child, somebody's going to get married, somebody's going to get divorced, those types of things. And so this is our cushion where we move that money and take it to the correct accounts as people change insurance coverages. So that's the first thing there. The second,
Let's go ahead and vote on these separate, or not vote on them.
they're
but
all part of the same category here.
Okay, go ahead then.
So the total for this category is going to be $1,025,000. So then the next piece of this category is $25,000 for unemployment compensation. Again, that's our cushion. We don't know which department is going to have unemployment claims, and so that's where we move that out of to the applicable department. There are some departments, our larger ones, like the sheriff's office, the jail, that we budget unemployment claims in their department, but this is for the rest of the departments. The other fringe benefits, that's going to be the cost for our retiree insurance there. And so then the last one is workers' compensation insurance. That money is paid over to our workers' compensation insurance fund. Every year we budget an estimated amount, and we move over what we need to throughout the year to cover that. But that entire category is $1,025,000.
Any questions for Michael? Any suggestions for a change? You recognize, Commissioner?
On the other fringe benefits, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So that is the cost of the county's portion of retiree benefits or retiree health insurance. So we move that over to our health insurance fund to fund our retirees' health insurance.
Any other questions from the committee? Do I hear a recommendation for any changes? If not, we're going to accept the mayor's recommendation for publication, $1,025,000. Move to the next one, which is miscellaneous.
So miscellaneous here, kind of like on the previous budgets, we have some extra money for gasoline. That was put in place back when gasoline prices were really fluctuating, but we still leave it there. It's a small amount, but it allows us to kind of budget for any fuel price fluctuations for our departments or their travel. Hopefully we don't need it, but it's there just in case. The next part's going to be judgments. That's money that we pay over to our self-insurance fund for liability claims. That is not the premium, that's for actual judgments levied against us, but that money goes to our self-insurance fund. The large amount of this is going to be trustees' commissions, and that's where the trustee is obligated to take certain commissions on money that flows through his office. Those percentages are set by state law. Some of those percentages are 1% or 2%, and any of his excess, that money, those trustees' commissions go to fund his office. Any excess go back in the general fund. So that total will be $4.2 million.
Michael, quick question. I know the gasoline item is $100,000. For some reason, it sticks in my mind that we had a separate line item for diesel. Am I correct, or those were grouped together?
I don't think so. I think we've just pulled from that gasoline line. Since I've been here, we may have in the past, but
it may have been in one of the specific agencies in the past.
Now, a couple of the budgets, I think, like fire may have a diesel line item, but we could pull from this gasoline line item and we'd amend the budget.
But we could use it for either one.
That's correct. It's really just a placeholder for any overages that we might have. Like I said, it was really important when fuel prices were really fluctuating, so they've leveled off a little bit for us, but that's what it was originally there for.
Yeah, I remember when we did that. Our gasoline was jumping up around $4 and higher. Okay, you've heard the request on the miscellaneous items. Any recommendations or questions?
Just a question. What exactly is a tribal consistency fund?
Oh, so that was a grant as part of a COVID grant. We don't have it anymore. So that if you're looking on your sheets, that's why you just see it as last year, the 100,000 for last year. There's nothing in there for this year. That was a grant as part of COVID.
Any other questions from the committee? Any recommended changes? Hearing none, we're also going to accept the miscellaneous column and add that to our publication list. And finally, Industrial Economic Development Fund, which is under tab 7.
So this fund right here, all that's in this fund is where we receipt money in from the Smyrna Rutherford County Airport Authority, and the money comes out and goes into our debt service fund to pay. We have 2 bonds that we've issued on their behalf. They pay both the principal and interest portion of that. This flows through that. This flows through that fund. Now, I would ask that you flip to tab 1. And this is going to get a little confusing, but so if you look there, you'll see 119. It's a 4 funds down on the left-hand side. You'll see it says Industrial Economic Development, Fund 119. And as you go across the lines there, you'll see that revenues are only 129,000, but expenses are 697. That is why we show an adjustments column out there, the second to last column to the right. We show an adjustments column of 567. That is because the principal payment cannot be shown as revenue. That principal payment is a reduction in bond principal there. That's the way the accounting makes us show that. So that fund is not in a deficit. That's the only reason we show that adjustments column, but it's the way the accounting has to work for that fund. That fund has a notes receivable if we want to get technical in the accounting, and so instead of recognizing a revenue, we reduce a receivable that's on the balance sheet. But every year it looks like a deficit. It is not. Just wanted to clarify that. But that's the only thing that's in that fund is their debt payments.
Any questions for Michael on the airport authorities? Industrial Economic Development Fund. Let me say that correctly. Any suggestions for Michael on any of the changes? Hearing none, we're going to accept this for publication, which moves us to other business. And then we've got a couple of questions or bring this to your attention. Public safety at their meeting, I guess it was last night before, had a request for us to look at a pay increase of 8.2, the total of 8.2 million. Is that correct?
They sent public safety pay plan increases and included some general employees. Their estimated dollar amount that committee estimated was 8.2 million. That did not come from this committee or from my office or anything. That came from their estimates. So they've requested that we look at that. It was forwarded to this committee to look at.
Now we can. I don't have this in front of me. I think you're going to put it on SharePoint. Is it there now?
So it is. It just got forwarded to me today. The PowerPoint that was presented last night. I believe my recommendation is for us to take this up on the 29th, if that's okay with the committee and the chairman, and I can have that put on SharePoint. And I've talked to IT that could have that PowerPoint put on iPads in front of you that night of that PowerPoint that was forwarded from Public Safety.
I want to make sure our HR people also get this, if they hadn't already. Commissioner?
Just a quick question. The 8.2, is that total comp or is that salary cash comp? Because if you add 25 some odd %.
So that presentation did not come from mine or Sonia's office. So to know what it included, all I have is the information that was on that PowerPoint. So I don't know if that included benefits or pension or that 8.2 was just the number they said at the total at the bottom. The one number that we gave them was an additional approximately 800,000 for longevity as part of that. But they had several things in that study or analysis that I believe 1 or 2 commissioners did. So I have no idea whether it was total comp or whether it was just salaries. Sonia, am I saying that right? I think she's, nothing came from us.
I haven't seen it, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just saw the PowerPoint today.
I'm just asking something of that magnitude, which is substantial. I'd like to see before the 29th.
I can email it to everybody on this committee if you'd like.
I mean, it's whoever the proponent, and I'm generally familiar, because
I think they were going to come on the 29th, those commissioners.
Yeah, we had requested the other day if there was a pay increase to do it after we meet on the 27th, so we see what the schools, if that gets settled out. So we'll look at it at or on the 29th, or we can look at it later if we need to. But unless someone wants to discuss that more tonight, the only other request that I think came out of public safety was from Commissioner James. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Was a request for $40,000 to go to the Amiable Fire Department. Where there was a change that Christiana was going to continue to operate. We could look at that at that time, or we can look at that tonight. And I'll leave that up to committee. If I hear a motion one way or the other, you hear none, we'll look at it on the 29th. Michael, have you got anything else?
Yes, so the school's budget, it's kind of an announcement for next Tuesday. So we have uploaded the schools, everything the schools gave to my office, we've uploaded on SharePoint. I've requested that OIT bring iPads for next week to have that entire presentation on your iPads and also have it on the screen. I can also print out their budget in paper if you would like to have for your books. So just some direction from the committee of what you would need from me. But I can also email you the packet they sent me if you would like to the committee members. But that's just some direction of what y'all were looking for the school budget for the joint meeting. And then also, just as a reminder, it is a joint meeting, so we can gavel in both committees to vote if you would like. Obviously, this committee could choose to not vote and defer it to the 29th if you'd like. That's just kind of a reminder. But if y'all just let me know what you want from me on the school's budget.
Last year, if you recall, we gavelled it at the same time. And, we did choose at that time to vote after the Board of Education or our Health and Ed Committee voted. And then we had the option to vote or not. We did vote on most of them. Some we carried over to our next meeting. But I would suggest, unless I hear otherwise from the committee, we do the same. Basically, both of us gavel in at the same time so we can join in the discussion. We will not vote on what Health and Ed's actual motions are. But after they vote, then we have the option of voting in. Mayor Carr, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did speak to General Weitzel, and he did apologize and request that they be calendared for the 29th.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is everything I've got. I do want to make announcements on our next meeting. Our next scheduled meeting, as Michael just mentioned, will be Tuesday, May the 27th at 5:30. That is the joint meeting with Health and Education, which will be here again. Then the meeting after that is Thursday, May 29th, which we'll refer to after that, June the 5th, for another that's our regular meeting, scheduled meeting. And then on June the 17th, that is the 7 o'clock date that we set for public hearing. So kind of give our folks at home time to look at that too. Michael?
Sorry, I've got two more things just to make sure. So Public Safety did forward us several other things, budget amendments and stuff. We'll do that at our regular meeting, and unless y'all would like to take it up, but we're prepared to do that on the regular meeting on the 5th. And then just as a reminder for next week on Thursday, that is an important meeting because that gives me direction of what y'all want to put in the publication. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them before then, but we'll have to leave that night with some direction for me to go to publication so that we meet all of the private act deadlines to get it in the paper. So we're pretty tight on a time frame based on those dates.
Sonia, you're recognized.
I may get in trouble for this, but a closing note, today is Michael's birthday, so if y'all haven't sang happy birthday to him, you know.
You're going to have to lead the singing. You're not going to get my voice going. Well, happy birthday, Michael. I will say that. So, what are you, 16? Is that right? Yes. Guys, is there any other business? Hearing no other business, we're adjourned.